Today is National Drop Everything and Read Day. 4 words, one instruction. No optimization, no scheduling around it. No finding the right moment when the conditions are ideal. Drop everything. Read right now. I'm Liz St. James. At H2P Collective, we work with people and teams to use their problems as a doorway to their goals. We have a 5-step framework called Synovio Space that takes a systems thinking, multi-dimensional approach to attaining goals. I want to borrow that instruction for something other than books today. There's a version of a relationship that looks completely fine from the outside. The logistics work. Nobody's fighting. The bills get paid, the kids get to school, the weekends happen. And underneath all of that, quietly, consistently, something is starving. Raphael and I have been together for over 20 years, and I can tell you from the inside of a long marriage that fine and thriving are not the same thing. The gap between them doesn't announce itself. It doesn't arrive in a crisis or a confrontation. It arrives in a Tuesday evening where you realize you've had 4 conversations today and every single one of them was about what needs to happen, and none of them were about either of you. What I've watched happen in relationships, including ours during the hardest periods, is a gradual substitution. Connection gets replaced by coordination. The conversations that used to be about what you were thinking, feeling, dreaming, become conversations about logistics, schedules, decisions, what needs to happen next. And it happens so gradually that most people don't notice the shift until they look up one day and feel profoundly alone in the company of the person they chose. The thing that makes this particularly hard to name is that fine is defensible. There's no incident to point to, no betrayal to process, no obvious problem requiring a solution, which means there's no obvious permission to say, this isn't enough. This isn't what I need. This isn't what either of us deserves. So people don't say it. They manage the logistics a little better. They plan a date night. They read the book about communication. And then the dynamic returns because the intervention didn't address what was actually depleted. What was depleted wasn't the schedule. It was the experience of being known. Not known in the aggregate, in the history, in the accumulated years, known right now, known in what you're carrying this week that you haven't told anyone, known in what you're hoping for that you haven't said out loud yet. That kind of knowing requires a specific practice, not a retreat, not a restructured calendar, and not a scheduled conversation with an agenda. The instruction from today's observance is the practice. Drop everything. Not when the time is right, not after the project finishes, right now. Put the phones down, close the laptop, turn toward the person in the room, or pick up the phone and call the person who should be and ask them something you genuinely don't know the answer to. Then listen without solving it. 5 to 10 minutes, no agenda, just contact. That's a deposit. Small enough to do consistently, significant enough to change what fine becomes over time. The free Synovio Space Diagnostic at h2pcollective.com gives you an honest snapshot of where you are across all 8 dimensions of your life. But a snapshot on its own is just data. What turns it into a roadmap is the conversation, your goals, your results, and the insight Raphael and I bring to both. That's where we find the one change that creates movement everywhere else. Take your goal, start with the diagnostic. That's the first step. Today is National Drop Everything and Read Day. The instruction was about books, but the practice belongs everywhere a relationship has been running on logistics instead of contact. Drop everything right now. That person has been waiting longer than either of you realized.